And good morning, everyone who's joined, and thank you for joining this morning. So, my name is Juuso, and I lead the Cim200 product here at Cim. And today I'm joined by Simon from Verplas. We'll introduce a little bit further in a moment. So those who don't know us very well, just a quick introduction to what we are. So we are and have been Sage business partners and developers for over 30 years. And we've only been working within the manufacturing verticals at Sage 50 and Sage 200 level. Currently, we have two products on Sage price lists, which are Cim200 Manufacturing for Sage 50 and Cim200 Manufacturing for Sage 200. And these two products are in use in well over 500 manufacturing sites. Today we focus on Cim200 and especially the migration from journey from Sage 200 manufacturing into Cim200. But a little bit of history first. So development of Cim200 started back in 2019 and was released a couple of years later. Our aim was always to allow the easiest migration route possible, which included things like maintaining the look and feel of Sage to provide that familiar look and feel, as well as providing a comprehensive migration tool for transferring those works orders, and that's including the historical works orders and settings to mimic the existing processes. We also added a lot of new features and functionality, and we are continuously developing more. But first and foremost, stability is very important to us. So any undocumented features, some call them bugs, will be always fixed by the next service packs, which are released throughout the year. So we don't have any outstanding bugs in the system. So as Martin mentioned, as you're aware, Sage 200 Manufacturing is end of life, and it will be removed from software altogether after the release of 2025 R1. So option for viewing the historical data from user interface can be important, and that's why we migrate in the historical works order data as well. So Cim 200 allows for that. For that, because if Sage 200 Manufacturing is end of life, Cim and Sage have a 3-day migration incentive for the orders that will be placed by the end of August 2025. So there really isn't much time anymore to take advantage of that. But enough of me repeating things that most of you know anyway. It's just good to refresh in case something has been forgotten about. But today I've been joined by Simon Clark from Verplas. And Verplas been our customers for about 18 years, and we've taken them initially into batch controller with Sage 50, then migrated 50 to 200, and most recently Sage 200 Manufacturing into Cim200. So they are quite a complicated site with about 30 users, and we tallied up and found there's 36 pieces of bespoke development done over the years, and there's a couple more that's been developed as we speak. That number is likely to reduce in the next 12 months, however, as there is functionality available through Cim200, but to get the migration smooth, it was decided to keep all of those at this stage. They also have other third-party integrations, which added another layer of complexity into the migration. And now that they went live earlier this year, we can have a little chat how the migration process look like. So Hi, Simon. Thank you very much
So
for
you,
giving us time from your busy calendar. So, firstly, could you give us a quick introduction to who you are and what you do?
okay. Yeah, I'm the business improvement manager. I've worked at Verplas for 4.5 years. And I guess during this hour, I'll take us through kind of a bit of the journey of Verplas. But Verplas, as you described, so it's sort of fairly complex business. You know, we supply kind of innovative indoor air ventilation systems to the housing market. And we've got sort of 2,000 plus products. I think there's probably about 4,000 on the system, but quite a few are not now supplied. And we manufacture probably, depending on when you're looking, 80 to 90% of those products we manufacture. We're doing so on quite a short lead time, and so that means we have quite extensive stocking requirements, and we do so in 4 separate warehouses, all within walking distance of each other, but geographically separated. So it just sort of complicates things a little bit as well. On a more general note, and I suppose this will come out as we go through the kind of questions as well, we've spent quite a lot of the 4.5 years of my time here and the new managing director's time here. We joined at roughly the same time. Focusing on culture, focusing on welfare facilities, just getting the business into a position of that is a little bit more up to date, because it was sort of formed in 1986, didn't move on greatly. 2013, it was bought by Indutrade, a Swedish company that did start to put investment in, but found they had to change the senior team to allow things like this that we're talking about today to be brought in. So yeah, from that point, 4.5 years down the line, or 4 years down the line, we needed to look at our manufacturing systems, which is where we sit now.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And so that prompted you to have a look at the manufacturing systems. So when did you identify that you have to actually start replacing the Cim200 manufacturing? So what was the key prompt for that search for a new solution at that point?
It was we first in our project plan, we had not realized we would have to replace the Sage manufacturing module. We didn't look at it, we didn't think about it too much. We just had it in the plan for later in our evolution, because we started by putting in barcoding in the warehouse because we were losing track of all of our stock, etc. So that took a little bit of time. We were focused, as I said, on culture. And then a couple of years into this 4.5-year journey, we thought, okay, right now let's plan in the manufacturing side of automation for us, and then became aware that we're moving it was moving towards end of life. So at first we'd actually started the process of populating MRP at that point, and we were getting quite excited until we realized while we're doing this, it's going end of life. And in fact, that gave us a real good opportunity to start from scratch. So we then spent, as you know, we spent quite a bit of time then sort of deciding what we actually needed, and it gave us an opportunity to look at other alternatives as well. Cim200 being one, Cyclone being another, you know, so we took quite a bit of time then actually going through that process.
Good, excellent. And you said you'd now fully aware you'd had a look at the other solutions as well, but what sort of a selection process did you have at that point?
Yeah, we had quite a lengthy selection process, but the key ones, I guess, were you know, the fact that we did have a barcoding system semi-bedded in. There were some issues initially, but it was working for us. So we absolutely needed to make sure we either got a system that worked with the current barcoding solution, or had at least another system we could actually put in that would complement what we were doing. We also were increasingly aware that, as you mentioned, we've got 36 bespokes at sort of the front end of the ERP, and a bit on the manufacturing side anyway, that we've transferred over into Cim200 and into the latest version of Sage 200. But it become apparent to us that standard software doesn't always cut it with us. I think that some of it is us, some of it is we want it our way. There is still that cultural thing, and some of it is that we have things like, if we look at the manufacturing process we've got, sometimes we'll run the same product for 2 days. Sometimes we might run it for nearly a week. We have some very long running products going down the manufacturing process, and customers are calling this off on a sort of 2 and 3 and 4 day lead time, including the kind of delivery point where we deliver right across UK and into Europe as well. So we've got quite a bit of a lead time there, and so we have to sometimes take product that is in manufacture to actually marshal it for dispatch, and so therefore we need to be breaking into things in a very specific way and keeping control of our warehouse at the same time. So we were looking at a system that would allow us to be flexible, and that's a simple kind of example of where we wanted flexibility. But also key, from sort of from the perspective of any project, is the customer, and we've got, we win awards for our customer service and our customer excellence and our sustainability, which is a separate point that will come out in this talk. So we had to make sure that we were starting the thought process of partnering, and the thought process of, well, what does this mean in terms of training? What does this mean in terms of adoption? Is the partner we're going to work with going to provide us with that solidity of customer service? We needed it to be very, very slick in terms of switching over the system. So we basically got it down to the short list of 2, of which Cim were one, obviously.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you could summarize sort of like what criteria did you actually use? What was the key elements when you actually chose the new system? So what was the criteria?
We sort of started to form the criteria. We did a kind of a risk register, quite an in-depth risk register, and as we were getting the presentations given to us by yourself, for example, Juuso, when you came in and presented Cim200, we built on that risk register and put, and realised what was important to us. Things like, familiarity, to have a system which was very familiar to us was useful. We'd already started to populate the Sage Manufacturing MRP system, for example, so it would be useful to have something that looked similar to that. We wanted to make sure that there was a proper manufacturing expertise, so it wasn't just an off-the-shelf product. We wanted something that was adaptable, and to work with a company that would listen to us when we wanted to perhaps modify what was an off-the-shelf item. That became very important to us. We did have that, 36 items of bespoke, which we were very nervous of removing. So we were keen that some of those bespokes would be built into the standard system, even though I've said, we might modify the standard system. It's handy to take into account some of the better bespokes we've developed over the years. And also those that we did want to take across, it was important that whoever we partnered with were capable of that. That was very, very key.
Good.
I mean, the final point, which became apparent during the sort of presentations in terms of the selection process, is the overall migration. You know, we did have some kind of woolly responses from elsewhere in terms of how all the data is going to be migrated. What will we do with the history? We've got many years of history in the Sage system. We didn't want to lose that once the manufacturing module was removed. The Sage manufacturing module was removed. We didn't want to run another separate system with an archive in there. So that was pretty. You know, it wasn't a go no go on it, but it was certainly incredibly important to us if we could have that. So those are the main points, I think.
So that's the main criteria. I guess you touched on quite a lot already. So why Cim200 was picked over the other alternatives, but was there any other key criteria why the selection process swayed our way, which we like?
Yeah, I mean, it was clear. Obviously, we've got many years of background with you. 18 years was it? So
yes,
it predates me quite some time. And you know, I'd mentioned having manufacturing expertise with a software house. It became quite clear that Cim have that. You know, it isn't just a software house. You know, there are people who really have worked in factories and used systems, which is useful for us because we know how to make things, and we know spreadsheets inside out, back to front, but we don't know our MRP systems very well, etc. as an overall business. I mean, it's something we brought in some more expertise, so that was key. Cim200 was a product which was launched probably just at the right time for us, because obviously the testing had been done, the bugs had been removed, and obviously we'll get into the implementation, and clearly they've been removed because there were none. So we were getting more and more comfortable as time progressed that it was at the right point. You know, that Cim200 was still molding a little, but absolutely stable. And the molding bit is we liked, because you know we could latch on to things like perhaps sustainability things that I know you'd presented to us, that you embedded in there. So it works with our current barcoding. Having said that, we absolutely ignored that when we went through the selection process. We said we don't want that to be the deciding point. If it means we have to change the barcoding, absolutely we would have done that. It was Cim200 that sold it.
Good, excellent. That's good news. Sounds good to me. And in terms of when you went through the implementation itself, so if we visit that a little bit, so were there any steps that you took? You mentioned a risk register and such like, but just to avoid any or have as little business disruption during the migration process?
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely key. I mean I come from a sort of I'm an engineer, production manager, then general manager. So I come from a very much my more latter career was looking after customers. So a project is not a project that's successful if you upset a customer. And so, you know, the implementation, it was another key point, you know, talking through with Cim, yourself, Juuso, and the wider team. It was clear you were on board with us in terms of minimizing the kind of disruption to the business. And it's a big deal, especially for people within this business who okay, we've worked with Sage at the front end a lot, but on the manufacturing side, we've not. We run very old-fashioned, or have done in the past. So yeah, risk register, regular meetings with you and people like Sam, etc. at Cim. The test system, putting that part in was very, very key as well. You know, we put it all into test here, so we could physically test it with our own Cim200 info in there, which allowed us to do the training as well. So all of that was a good steady build up to the go live, which we did in January, as you know. You know, I was nervous, and I'll be honest that, you know, it was absolutely too smooth at that point. That we put the test system in, we weren't finding any problems. The users were adopting it and not asking many questions. So I thought we perhaps hadn't been thorough enough. You know, but I can say up front we absolutely had been thorough enough. It was just a familiar system. It worked well. And you know, the support that was given was spot on. So, you know, we got to the point where we were comfortable. We just then needed to, that was late on last year, where we just needed to pick a go live. And as you know, Juuso, I got put back from last year into early part of this year. Unfortunately, I wanted to do it last year, but we were very busy. We had a couple of people out of the business, so we put it back to January, end of January, and yeah.
Yeah, and so that was all the steps taken and everything gone smoothly. So I guess there isn't a great deal to tell about the implementation and migration, other than creating a test system. Or is there anything else that was noticeable from your side of things?
Well, I guess we would say that, you know, we de-risked it even further. We're very risk averse because we like our customers, and we moved the kind of migration onto our new server. We had a new server going in at the same time, and obviously the updated version of Cim200 went in at the same time, and obviously Cim200 went in at the same time. So we did all of that over a weekend, unnecessarily in the end, because what happened on the Monday after we'd migrated everything, with a few checks happening over the weekend, we were literally over the 30 users. Effectively, the back end we were dispatching after about an hour, and it was complete. Every single user was completely repointed to the new system by about lunchtime. So it was very easy. You know, it really was. And I went home on that Monday thinking I was going to get a call overnight with 24-hour production here. Nothing happened. We were fine. You know, we had the odd application we point to the correct server, but that was because we'd moved server at the same time. So it just went seamlessly over, you know, half a day really, with the migration happening at the weekend.
Yeah, excellent. And so once you had gone live, how did the users buy into the new solution? How did they found the interface, or was there any qualms about that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I had to kind of put a message to myself. I hadn't thought that one through enough, but it didn't matter. You know, I just had accepted the fact that in the testing phase that the problems would come up. If there were no problems, and I relaxed. But I was right to relax, to be fair. You know, I think it was the familiarity that the users had with the system was such that they completely accepted it. There are some bits of functionality that differ, and obviously people from the testing and training phase to the go live had forgotten. And you know, you did have moments of, oh, the whole thing's broken, and all it was Nathan, our IT guy, as you know. He became very familiar with the system, just over their shoulder, pointed at a couple of extra bits and bobs they had to do, and off they were. So off they were going. So though that cleared up after week one, really nothing week two in terms of the users at all. Literally nothing, not a single issue at all from them. Yeah, I think that probably covers the transitions to the people, really. Yeah,
Yeah, good.
seamless.
Excellent. That's how we like to make it happen, and because that's based on a good training, planning, and support throughout the go live. But what do you think it'll be next? So, have you seen any enhancements so far in terms of the
We,
manufacturing processes? I know you're running it pretty much as you were running the Cim200 Manufacturing previously, but have you
we
seen?
are, yeah. I mean, we've not. It's one where we're not progressed enough, and it frustrates me. You know, we're now into mid-May, and we've had some challenges in terms of other things going on within the business, which has meant we're now starting to build our MLP data. There's good support from Sam from Cim side to help us with that, to refamiliarize ourselves with what we'd started to learn for the Sage manufacturing MRP, but had to stop. And so we're now in that process of getting quite locked into, you know, really running with the manufacturing site now with Cim200. Obviously, through the last sort of few weeks, we've also remembering what we can do with regards to things like sustainability. You know, I think I mentioned, if I didn't, I apologize, we're now owned by a Swedish company who are rightly very locked into sustainability. We are anyway. Our whole product is, you know, we're virtually 100% using recycled material. We supply into a housing market, but in a way that allows passive homes to not completely cloud up with condensation. You know, we've got fresh air solutions going in around the country and around Europe, and so sustainability is important. And so the Cim200, again, going back to why we chose it, there are people who've worked in manufacturing in Cim, and so there's a realization that there needs to be more simple understanding the reporting on sustainability aspects. So all of that, you know, we've got an exciting kind of this year to build the MRP system, start looking at, you know, barcoding from the manufacturing into the warehousing, and the sustainability functions. So all of that's in our plan for this year. So if we were to have this this discussion in 6 months, you know, we'd be probably talking for an hour on that, I would have thought.
Yes, very good, very good. Yeah, so really looking forward to seeing the next steps and being there for you along the way. And you mentioned early on, just looking back, is the customers are very important to you. We at Cim, we have similar sort of a feel, and I think you mentioned before that it is quite important to work with the suppliers who share like your ethos of looking after the customers and employees. But for us, again, it's exactly the same. It's very important to work with similar customers, not just the suppliers. So I'm sure you're agreeing on that side that yeah, we do share our ethos and values as a business, and it is quite important for both of us.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, it's definitely a real good point you raise. I mean, as I said, my last 20 years of career before coming here have been in general management and running businesses, and so, you know, became very much focused on cultures within businesses, which is why I ended up at Verplas, because I have a background of culture change more latterly in my career. And so, you know, whenever I speak to a supplier when I was first here, for example, I'm listening out for the culture, because we went very heavily into culture change at Verplas because there wasn't any focus on the team members really. Well, obviously there was, but not to the degree of providing the right working environment, positive working environment, the right way of treating each other, etc. So there's no point going to have a partner or a supplier who doesn't follow that sort of ethos. Otherwise, team members at Verplas would say, hang on, why are we dealing with these people? They don't care about us, they don't care about our customer, because obviously our part of our vision is clearly customer focused. Most of it's customer focus and teamwork. It's all customer focus and team focus. So we needed to make sure in this process, using this as an example, that Cim were the right partner to continue with our manufacturing side. And obviously, you absolutely got the right culture there without question. You even let dogs in the in your office, which is a great thing.
That's right. Very good. So in summary, from start to finish, I know you've done very thorough due diligence on the selection process, and we've been through that all along. Because I don't know if you wanted to summarize the whole project, how would you think that went from start to finish, and to this point? I guess it's never finished, but it's ongoing project.
It's not, and we'll learn more as we go through. But in terms of we've not found any issues at all with it. And in the past I have implemented new IT systems elsewhere, and as has our MD, and our MD is always saying that there is never an IT implementation that doesn't go wrong. And so I'm always on my guard whenever we do anything IT-wise. I'm not an IT guy, which I guess helps in terms of de-risking in some ways, because I'm always looking for the negative. But this was by far, in my 40 years of kind of being in industry, by far the less stressful implementation I've ever done, and it was quite a big one. New server, new version Sage, new manufacturing system with a business that's running on short lead time. It was busy at the time, we still are. Just won another customer service gold award. Didn't want to ruin that, my reputation's gone, we did. So it all just went. It went, like I say, a month later I was still waiting for that didn't happen. So yeah, but we did a lot of due diligence, and to be fair, so did Cim as a business, and supported us very well in terms of our fears, and provided lots of training where we needed it, but we didn't need as much as we thought we'd need. Yeah, so I look forward to the next part, which is fully running with the manufacturing system. It's running, but we're not utilizing its functions yet properly.
Sure, thank you very much, Simon. And I think what summarizes this quite well is this slide here. Hopefully you can see my screen, but that was a quote from a chat we had. Is the migration was almost too easy, if it can be too easy. So yeah, thank you very much for that. And if there are any questions from the people on the call, we would welcome any of those now.